All right. So for today, the SMART goals I played with, here, give you a little background information. So I'm working with 7th grade, and the course is U.S. History 2. So we're looking at, that says 1985, it's supposed to say 1865. So I'm way off there to present. But that's just to give, so there's just a little background. Okay, so it's U.S. History 2, so 1865, Reconstruction era through the present. But the unit we're focusing on, or the unit I focused on with the SMART goals here, is World War II, and then the specific sections, the European theater. So we're studying the unit I was working with on my own was World War II, but then I thought, well, SMART goals, how can I incorporate this into the unit? And I decided to put it in here with European theater. Okay, so the assignment was the students were going to work through this narrative journal. Okay, so first there's this project that this would go with. So the students were required to complete a project on the European front that had 4 parts. All right, the narrative journal, there would be a photo/document analysis. So the students would, and this pertained like with the Holocaust, so I was able to bunch, because we're looking at regions here. So rather than going chronological order, here's what happened on a time scale throughout World War II. We were like, okay, let's look at European theater, then let's look at Pacific theater and whatnot. So working through that, but within that particular section or theater there, was able to put these themes in. Okay, so photo document analysis, and then there was a graphic organizer of leaders and commanders. That's the students would be looking up major leaders, major commanders. Okay, so it's a ton of information there. And then lastly, key battles of the European theater. So not just, I don't want to say European front, even though that's kind of what I have here, because looking at this specifically, there was like an Eastern front in Europe. There was, of course, like a Western front. And there was North Africa that the students looked at. So it's taking a bunch of information, trying to condense it, trying to just pull away essential details, characters, themes, and whatnot. Okay, so the specific prompt for this assignment was that the students were going to imagine that they're on the front lines in Europe. Right? They were going to write 2 paragraphs that explain the following: what are they doing? Where are they? Or where are they at in relation to Europe? Okay, what side are you on? So who are they fighting for? What are the conditions like? And then, like, what season and year is it? Okay, so that's all important, because if they're talking about the Battle of Stalingrad, okay, all right, that's happening at a different time as opposed to, say, maybe they're Battle of France, or maybe they're in France when Hitler's beginning to, come through with his forces, or maybe it's Battle of Berlin and they're, talking about the air fight and whatnot that was taking place. Make sense? All right, this prompt would be used for both pieces. Okay, so beginning of the project. Here's the prompt. They're all going to work through that, okay? They're going to write their responses, okay? They're going to turn those in. They're going to work through some of the projects, all right? I get with them, talk to them, give them feedback, whatnot. And then, okay, second part. Now, they knew they had to do 2, okay? But I told them for this specific project that that's how this part would be structured. Okay, so, because 7th grade students, you understand, you get with them and they kind of, you know what I mean? Like, and so, guidance and direction at all times, okay? Or else they're going to freak out. All right, so the participating students for this classroom that I focused on, that I gathered the information of, it was first period. There's 28 students. About average performance. So, yeah, there's high performing, low performing. Overall, they're pretty average in terms of where the other classes stack up. Really fun group. They come in, they're energetic, they're ready to ride. So it was like that pretty much every day. There were some IEPs and or Section 504 plans. There was an instructional aid in the class, though. So you have the instructional aid there to assist. So every day it's, hey, do you need copies? Do you need, what about little Sally over here, right? So they were able to help me with that. So I didn't have to really take away from the class. Though, right, for this particular assignment, that wouldn't have really been a big issue, okay? So for the SMART goal, I had 2 key elements, okay? The first was that 100% of the students would either hold their letter grade, okay? So I didn't look at just points, because I'll explain this as a 10-point scale here, okay? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, up to 10, all right? So they would either hold the letter grade, all right, they would they would increase their narrative journal entry grade by at least 1 grade point overall. So it's really letter grade, right? Okay. The second was that 100% of the participating students will show an average improvement of 2. So as a class, the average would be at least 2. So some did really well, held. Some didn't, okay, and then some did really poor on the first one, but were able to pull it together and at least show, on average, a 2 grade letter. I'm going to get it together eventually, all right? So just bear with me. Okay, so grading and expectations. Okay, when the grading came, here's where we get to the nuts and bolts. So this portion of the project made up 25% of the overall project grade. So, right, there's 4 parts, 25%, all right? All right, and then expectations. So, yeah, there's going to be issues with sentence structure, grammar, spelling. That was evident through gathering the information, writing through. I didn't kill the students on that, okay? I mean, they're 7th grade. Those issues are going to happen. They're working through DBQs, right? So, I mean, they're learning as they're going with that. They're probably a lot more ahead of where I was as a 7th grader. So, pretty impressed overall with some of their work. Okay, but one thing that I was big on is that students must have all the required elements, okay? And that's kind of what I listed before. So all the students needed those required elements to receive a 10 out of 10. All right, so here's where we see first, okay? So these are the grades. I took 3 students out of the whole, all right, to highlight here where we've got one that's, you know, a 9.5 out of 10, an 8, and then a 6 out of 10. So you can see, and then these were the feedback. So this student didn't have the second paragraph, so I didn't murder them on that, right? I just, but again, they got to have that second element, or that element there to get a full 10 out of 10. Now, it's not like, you know, they're, oh, my dreams are crushed. What am I going to do with my life? You know, these kids, they're like, you know, okay, you know, I'm pretty sure student C there was pretty happy with the 6 out of 10, but I worked with them to try to get that pulled up, okay? So, what did I do for feedback or help? And I mentioned this a little earlier. So, I constructed a comment section on the narrative journal rubric. So, they got a rubric where it was like a 0, 2, 4, 6, right? So, I could go in between the margins and say, oh, yeah, this is like a 9. But I could highlight areas within the rubric where it shows like, okay, this is what you need in order to get a 10, right? So, and then I could underline sections where they needed to work, but then I had this comment section where I could actually write out feedback. So it's like, hey, listen, don't forget second paragraph. You know, don't work on grammar, work on sentence structure, come see me. You know, constructive feedback like that. And then the second was, I offered students the opportunity to meet with my cooperating teacher or myself for a one-on-one help session. As supportive as my cooperating teacher was, she tended to move outside of the classroom a lot, but she was willing to work with the students one-on-one in case I wasn't there or wasn't available. If it was going to be like taking away from other class or other students, she was willing to help in that because she knew what was going on, so she was on the up and up with that. Overall, there were a few students that were like, hey, yeah, I'd love to come through and get some extra help. There were a couple students where I'm like, you need to come see me. Yeah. So, and that was just to kind of say like, hey, what's up? Like, why, you know, you really bombed the first one. Not a real bad thing, but let's work together on where areas you can improve for the second. All right, so narrative number 2, same prompt, right? You can see student A, they held again, second paragraph. I was like, you know, they're just like, oh, I thought I was good, Mr. Afford, but. So again, there's where they held, okay? B had a 9 out of 10, so they did a lot better with their grammar, their spelling. The biggest thing was being more descriptive, okay, in their paragraph, or, you know, where they were like, okay, yeah, so, plus they was like one of the only students that actually provided 2 full paragraphs, so I was patting them on the back for that. And then student C, you can see where they got the 2 point, or the 2 grade letter jump there. They moved from a 60 to an 80. So again, they forgot their second paragraph, work a little bit on the grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, and then includes more required elements. So just being a little more descriptive, okay? Now again, I'll speak to this in a second, but just real brief, you're probably wondering to yourself like, okay, well what about, you know, the students, like the actual writing, like what do they, okay, so moving into this, they had a pretty good idea of what battles were taking place, you know, like Battle of Britain, the fall of France, like that exchange there in North Africa. They didn't really know a whole lot about the Eastern Front and stuff, but they had enough there that they could write out, you know, like, okay, what would that be like on the front lines? Okay, so prompt 1, and then getting more information, moving through to prompt 2, they had a really good amount of information at that point on, okay, I can explain being in Stalingrad, Moscow, North Africa, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So a lot of that kind of helped with their second narrative there. Okay, so in relation to the goals here, pretty much both goals were met. You know, I mean, you can kind of see there with the examples, and I intentionally pulled those to show that, okay, here's where wasn't such a good response, and then the second one was, or either the student held, you know, and then where, I mean, they just like that second paragraph. That's where a lot of students, they're just kind of lazy. Kills me. I can't fault them though, because I'm kind of the same in my own learning. So, closing remarks, I was really pleased with a lot of the students' effort. Again, you know, 7th grade students are kind of, you know, when it comes to writing, especially the DBQs, it's like, gosh. Unfortunately, that's what I would have loved to have used for this, but due to the snow, my own unit, that really kind of created some tension there with trying to get through what I wanted to. I sat on this section of the unit a little longer than I would have liked to, but again, being that project, that's a ton of information. Their final test, I mean, covered just before World War II and then through the end and all that's in between. So I was really impressed with not just their writing prompts, but overall just their ability to retain a lot of that information we studied. I didn't, you know, like ask them very specific questions, but a lot of the operations that took place, battles and whatnot, was on the test. And a lot of that came from them being able to retrieve this information, you know, just like being able to understand, okay, not just from the perspective of a soldier, but where are they fighting, what's the war or battle that's taking place, what are the conditions. And then it's up to them. Are you on the Axis side, or are you on the Allied side, and so forth. So, really good, a lot of fun. Thanks for paying attention.